But I wanted to ask you, because I think everyone has a different perspective and opinion on branding. So, in your own words, Tanvi, how would you describe branding? What is it, and why is it so important?
I think people forget that we're storytellers. Like people have gone through generations telling stories. That's how history is made. That's how we record memories and ideas. That's how we share thoughts and even build relationships and communicate with each other. So if you take that essential tool that we have as humans for connection and storytelling, that's what a brand is. It's like you're building a story that someone can connect with,
Okay.
connect deeply with, and it can impact their lives. And that's where you have something that will hopefully build a successful product or business, not necessarily because you're trying to make a sale, but because you're trying to solve someone's need or
Okay.
address, their big question. And that's what branding is. It's trying to position to someone the best story you can tell for what you're trying to do, so that it's memorable, so that it's exciting, and so that it builds a story that will last.
Yeah. So in other words, branding at its core all comes down to telling a specific kind of story to solve a need, which is whatever business you're running, you're trying to solve that need.
Mm-hmm.
So in the process of like coming up with like your branding, what should you be thinking about? Like, is it what kind of story do you want to tell, or is it more about how can we tell the story?
Mm. Um, Good question, because I wish I had a straightforward answer. It has to be a balance, and we were just talking about like you can't find balance,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it has to be a balance of obviously what you're trying to deliver, who you're trying to deliver it to, so speaking their language, and also then your own vision for what this can be. And I think having a really nice rounded balance of like this beautiful aspirational narrative to the more tactical and specific and simple things that will get across to the right customers, to the right people you're trying to reach,
Mm.
that makes a solid brand.
A solid brand. So it's about, like you said, like targeting the right, like telling the right story to the right people.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that I was thinking about when I was thinking about branding is I was thinking about like all the big companies, you know what I mean? Their brands are very like known. Like think about Nike, Apple, Adidas, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But my guess is when they started, that wasn't the case. Their branding wasn't that strong. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I was also trying to think, I'm like, okay, based on what you said, if you're trying to deliver the right story to the right people, that means as you evolve as a company, your target audience might change. So does that mean like is branding something that also has to evolve in accordance with that, or is branding something that you kind of solidify from day one and then you just like make little tweaks and maybe like your strategy on how to start targeting like new people?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Your branding is the latter. Like, it's what you decide, you commit to, you make a commitment. This is my vision. This is what I'm never going to stray from. And it's broad because it needs to be to allow for all of those changes. And that's where communication and marketing and all of the things that come to support your brand and support getting the message out there, that's where you build more tactical strategies that are time-based and topical. And, they will keep shifting, shifting to your markets, shifting to your products. But like, what you've committed to on a vision level, on a mission level, the kind of change impact you want to make, your personality, let's say, that shouldn't change.
Okay,
The
interesting.
same way a person wouldn't change who they are based on their situation, they might change how they navigate it. It's the same for a brand. You change how you navigate, but you don't change the essence of what you are.
That's really interesting. So you don't change. So the brand is almost timeless, but the I guess the strategies or the process of how you communicate that brand can evolve over time
Yes.
with the same message in different ways.
Yes.
Okay, that's really really interesting. I never thought of it like that. So what are the kind of things that make up like a good brand? If I told you, from all the experience that you've done, what are the metrics that identify what a good brand is? Like what would, for example, give me an example of a brand that you like, why is it good, and maybe that we can get a better idea of like what are the factors that play into that.
Like the different components.
Yeah, exactly. Like what are the metrics that make
Yeah.
up a good brand? Like how would I identify like, oh, that's a good brand, that's not maybe not a good brand?
Um, I almost hate myself for saying this because I use it in all my client meetings, like everything I've done for the past few years. This is my benchmark.
Okay.
But
Alright.
I think Headspace is one of the most solid brands I have seen.
Headspace.
Headspace
Interesting. Okay. Tell us
as a
why.
brand. From having a very clear mission, which is executed on the most minute level to every instance and interaction that happens on their platform, to every animation that they create and every visual, to the very specific use of tone, whether it's read or it's heard. Like every instance, you can measure it against the same mission, you can measure it against the same kind of principles, like brand drivers, however you want to call them. But it's very clear that like they're precise in what they've committed to do, and they don't waver from that. And I think that's an incredible brand because you've done the homework to know what's the right positioning for you and how to best deliver it, and you're consistent in delivering it on every single touch point.
Okay.
That makes a great brand.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like they talk about everyone's journey being different, and they talk about imperfection, and they talk about maybe you fall off and how do you get back, and it's this constant motivation and support, and that's basically the tool that they've built. So they've built the tool that serves that. They talk about that, and then they also have these beautiful visuals, like they have this imperfect circle, which is their main logo or their glyph. Like awesome, like it's imperfect. There's nothing about their app that makes you strive for perfection, and everything is allowed and everything is okay, and that's the message they're sending. Everything is okay. Just take one step, and you see it in everything.
Yeah. And do you think, I think Headspace is quite a unique example because like you said, the message kind of covers it's like a wide net. Do you know what I mean? Like all those kind of things are things that are their branding or their message is so relatable to us as people. So I can see why it's like successful, or you think like they do it like quite well. But in terms of something, maybe let's think of it as more of something more product driven. It's probably a lot harder to cast that wide of a net that's so relatable to so many people. Do you understand what I mean?
Yes. But then you have so many that are able to do this, but the reason I chose Headspace is because I can't say that it's because it's a good brand, or because they have legacy, or because they have the network effect. People that you value associate with them, and all of a sudden they become important, like Nike. That's kind of their claim to fame, is that they've built such strong associations and partnerships, and they've tapped into micro communities. So this is all their strategy. This to me isn't their brand.
Okay, interesting. Okay,
this is great strategy work. This is great comms. But if I think of on a brand level, something that's just an incredible brand, I think I really struggle with that. I mean, this might be controversial. I think not controversial,
yes,
but maybe like
in there, it's fine.
It's not even controversial. I wish it was. It's actually just like I'm outdated, and I think this is still great.
Okay.
Like I think there's a designer, I don't know if you know Yoji Yamamoto, who was the collaborator on Y3, Adidas Y3.
Okay. So
he comes from this really like avant-garde school of thought, and in terms of his tailoring and construction, and he, like, if I think of how he's branded himself so that the Adidas and people of the world want to work with him, that might be like a product driven good brand. I know this isn't maybe like the Cokes of the world, or it's not so conventional as an answer, but like as a person who's developed a brand around what they stand for and has consistently delivered on that, season after season of his collections, and then has been able to convince people like Adidas and Nike to buy into this mission. That's also a really successful brand. I think, like, because I work with a lot of startups, and I think about it from this perspective, is like, if you if you really build something you're sure of, and that and you do it effectively and you do it consistently, then there is no big and small brand anymore. Then it's just about efficacy and it's about time. So if you're effective for a long period of time, then you are essentially Nike. You know, they've just have time over everyone else.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of great brands out there that have proven themselves in other ways, and validation is a great way to prove a brand. So I think like Yohji Yamamoto being validated by an Adidas, that proved that he has an incredible brand and product out there, and what he stands for in how he approaches work is makes a great brand.